I started leaving at 5 p.m. every day. I was tired of the fact that I barely saw my kids. My boss said that's not how we do it here. Everyone works until 7. I showed him my contract, 9 to 5. He smirked, that's for people who don't care. I said pay me more. The next morning I went pale when I saw. That's not how we do things here. Marcus was standing in my doorway, coffee in hand, that particular tilt to his head he always used when he thought he was being reasonable. Behind him, the office floor was still full. Keyboards clicking. Monitors glowing. 6:15 on a Tuesday and nobody had moved. I had my jacket on, bag over my shoulder. Everyone works until 7, he said. Minimum. You know that. I'm aware of what everyone does. Then what's this? He gestured at me like I was a display. 3rd time this week. 4th, actually. His smile tightened. He stepped inside and closed the door behind him. The glass walls didn't offer much privacy, but he liked the theater of it, the closed-door talk, the serious conversation. I hired you because you were hungry, he said. That's what your references said. That's what I saw in your interviews. Hungry, driven, willing to put in the work. I put in the work. 8 hours of it, every day. That's the baseline. That's showing up. That's not standing out. I didn't sit down. Neither did he. My kids are 7 and 4, I said. I see them for maybe 45 minutes in the morning before school. If I leave here at 7, I get home at 8. They're already in bed. That's not a schedule. That's a ghost living in their house. Everyone here has families. Everyone here has commitments. We make it work because we understand what it takes to build something. What we're building is a regional logistics platform, Marcus. Not the pyramids. He didn't like that. His jaw tightened. The coffee cup lowered an inch. I'm trying to help you, he said. I'm trying to keep you on track for Q3 reviews. You know how visibility works around here. You know what the partners look at. I know exactly what they look at. Billable hours that don't get billed. Overtime that doesn't get paid. Bodies in chairs past sundown so the building looks committed when clients drive by. That's a very cynical way to. It's accurate. He exhaled, shifted his weight, changed tactics. I've given you good projects, high-profile accounts. You've had access most people at your level would kill for. And I've delivered on every single one of them. On time, under budget, without a single client complaint. The work is only part of it. Culture matters. Presence matters. People notice when you're not here. People notice when I am here too. They notice I close more accounts before lunch than half this floor closes all week. He set the coffee down on my desk, folded his arms. The posture was supposed to communicate disappointment, fatherly concern. I'd seen it 100 times in 100 offices across my career. The soft power play, the we're on the same team guilt trip. I'm asking you, he said slowly, as someone who's invested in your future here, to reconsider the message you're sending. And I'm asking you to read my contract. I pulled it up on my laptop, turned the screen toward him. The relevant section was highlighted. I'd done that the night before, knowing this was coming. 9 to 5, I said. Standard hours. With provisions for occasional extended project work, compensated at time and a half. That's what I signed. That's what you signed. He glanced at the screen. Didn't read it. He already knew what it said. Contracts are frameworks, he said. They're not instructions. They're legal agreements. They're starting points. Everyone here started with the same piece of paper. Everyone here understood what the real expectations were. Then you should have written those expectations into the contract. His smile came back. Smaller now. Tighter. Less performance, more genuine irritation. That's for people who don't care, he said. That contract, those hours, that's for people who are here to collect a paycheck and go home. People who aren't serious about growth. People who aren't going anywhere. People who have boundaries, you mean. People who don't understand what opportunity looks like. I closed the laptop, picked up my bag. If you want me here past 5, I said, pay me more. Excuse me. You heard me. You want extra hours, you pay for extra hours. That's how employment works. That's how contracts work. You don't get to guilt me into free labor by calling it culture. He laughed, short and sharp. You think you're in a position to negotiate? I think I closed 4 accounts last month that are keeping this floor's lights on. I think I'm the only person on your team who actually hits deadlines without being micromanaged. I think if you want to talk about value and visibility, we should talk about who's actually visible to your clients. His face didn't change, but something behind his eyes did. A small recalculation. A measuring. We'll discuss this tomorrow, he said, after you've had time to think. I've thought plenty. Have a good night, Marcus. I walked past him, out the door, across the floor, past the hunched shoulders and tired faces, past the people who looked up and quickly looked away, past the elevator bank where I pressed the button and waited in silence while the whole office pretended not to watch. The doors opened. I stepped in. Hit the lobby button. Marcus was still standing in my doorway when the doors closed. They'd been pushing like this for a while. Not just Marcus. The whole company. The culture. The unspoken rules that everyone followed because everyone else followed them. Stay late. Come early. Answer emails at midnight. Take calls on weekends. Never say no. Never push back. Never suggest that your time might belong to you. I'd played along for the first year. Told myself it was temporary. Told myself I was building something. Told myself the sacrifice would pay off when the promotions came, when the bonuses hit, when the partners finally noticed how hard I was working. The promotions went to people who stayed latest. The bonuses went to people who never took vacation. The partners noticed the same people every quarter. The ones who were always there, always visible, always performing exhaustion like it was a competitive sport. And while I was performing, my kids were growing up in another room. My wife was putting them to bed alone. My son stopped asking if I'd be home for dinner because the answer was always the same. My daughter started drawing pictures of our family with only 3 people in them. I found one of those drawings in her backpack. Just her and her brother and her mom. Standing in front of a house, big sun in the corner, green grass at the bottom. No, Dad. I asked her about it. Casual. Didn't want to make it a thing. You're always at work, she said. Like it was simple. Like it was fact. That was 3 months ago. I started leaving at 5 the next day. The morning after the confrontation with Marcus, I pulled into the parking garage at 8:50. Same spot I always used. Same routine. Coffee in hand. Badge on my lanyard. Laptop bag over my shoulder. The elevator ride up was normal. The hallway was normal. The glass doors into the office suite were normal. But when I stepped onto the floor, something was different. People were looking at me. Not the quick glances from the night before. Actual staring. Heads turning. Conversations stopping mid-sentence. I walked toward my office. Slower now. Reading the room. My door was closed. The blinds were drawn. There was a printed notice taped to the glass. I stopped a few feet away. Read it. Reassignment notice. Effective immediately. Please report to HR for relocation instructions. My stomach dropped. I turned. Looked across the floor. Found Marcus standing near the conference room. He was watching me. Arms crossed. That same tilt to his head. He smiled. Not a warm smile. Not a professional smile. A victory smile. A you should have listened smile. I pulled the notice off the glass. Read it again. The language was vague. Department restructuring. Resource reallocation. New role assignment pending review. I walked across the floor. Every step felt like it was being watched. Every step felt like it was being measured. The HR office was in the back corner. Small room, frosted glass, perpetually closed door. I knocked twice. Come in. Inside, Janet Myers was waiting. Head of HR, mid-50s, silver hair, neutral expression perfected over decades of delivering bad news. Close the door, please. I did. Sit down. I didn't. What's happening? I asked. She folded her hands on the desk. There's been a restructuring decision. Your role is being eliminated. Eliminated, absorbed, redistributed. The accounts you've been managing will be transitioned to other team members. Which team members? That's still being determined. And what's my new role? She paused. Just a beat. There isn't one. Not at this time. So I'm being fired. You're being released. There's a severance package. 2 weeks. Standard benefits continuation for 30 days. We'll provide a reference letter. On what grounds? It's a restructuring. There don't need to be grounds. It's retaliation. I pushed back on unpaid overtime and suddenly my role is eliminated. Her expression didn't change. I understand this is difficult. I understand you're covering for Marcus. This decision came from senior leadership. It's not personal. It's absolutely personal. I have the highest close rate on that floor. I've never missed a deadline. I've never had a client complaint. There's no business reason to eliminate my role. Performance isn't the only factor in restructuring decisions. What factor is it then? Cultural fit? Visibility? Staying late enough to make the partners feel good? She didn't answer. I pulled out my phone, opened the contract I'd saved there, scrolled to the section on termination. My agreement requires 60 days notice for role elimination, I said, unless there's documented cause. The company's position is that restructuring constitutes operational necessity. The company's position is whatever Marcus told you to say. I'm going to need you to lower your voice. I'm going to need you to explain how this isn't wrongful termination. She stood up, slowly, deliberately, the practiced calm of someone who'd been in this room 1,000 times before. You have 2 options, she said. You can accept the severance package and leave today with your reference letter intact. Or you can dispute the decision, in which case the company will be forced to document the concerns that have been raised about your performance and attitude, concerns that might make future employment more difficult, concerns that don't exist, concerns that can be created. There it was, the quiet part out loud, the threat wrapped in bureaucratic language. I looked at her for a long moment. She didn't blink. "I'll need that in writing," I said. "Excuse me. Everything you just said, the restructuring, the severance, the terms, the implied threat about fabricated performance concerns, I want it in writing." "That's not how this works." "That's exactly how this works. You put it in writing, I sign it, everyone's protected. That's basic procedure." Her jaw tightened. "I'll have the paperwork sent to you by end of day. I'll be at my desk." "Oh wait, I don't have one anymore." I turned toward the door. Stopped. "I'll be in the lobby. 30 minutes. If the paperwork isn't there, I'm calling a lawyer." I walked out. The paperwork arrived in 22 minutes. A junior HR assistant brought it down. Nervous kid, couldn't have been more than 23. He handed me a manila folder and practically ran back to the elevator. I sat on one of the lobby couches and read every word. The severance was exactly what Janet had described. 2 weeks. Benefits for 30. A reference letter that would say nothing meaningful. A release form that would waive my right to sue for anything related to my employment. Standard boilerplate for covering tracks. I didn't sign it. Instead, I took photos of every page, saved them to my cloud storage, emailed copies to my personal account. Then I put the papers back in the folder and walked outside. My car was still in the garage. My stuff was still in my office, but I wasn't going back up there. Not yet. I drove home. My wife was in the kitchen when I walked in, 10:30 on a weekday morning. She looked at me like I'd grown a second head. "What happened?" "They fired me." She set down the dish she was drying, didn't say anything for a moment. "Sit down," she finally said. "Tell me everything." I told her everything. The confrontation with Marcus, the notice on my door, the meeting with HR, the paperwork, the threat. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. "You're going to fight it," she said. "Not a question." "I'm going to fight it." "Good." I looked at her, really looked at her. She didn't seem scared, didn't seem worried. She seemed angry. "They can't do this," she said. "They can't just fire you for leaving on time. They think they can. Then we show them they can't." I'd been prepared for panic, prepared for questions about bills and savings and how long we could last, prepared for the fear that comes with sudden unemployment and an uncertain future. But she wasn't afraid. She was ready. "I need to find a lawyer," I said. "Someone who specializes in employment law, wrongful termination, retaliation claims. I have a friend from college. Her husband does labor law. Let me make some calls." "Okay." She walked around the counter, put her hands on my shoulders, looked me in the eye. "We're going to be fine," she said. "You did the right thing. You stood up for yourself. For us. For the kids. Whatever happens next, that matters." I nodded, didn't trust myself to speak. "Now," she said, "go change out of that suit. You look like you're going to a funeral." I laughed. It came out wrong, halfway to a sob, but it was still a laugh. "I might be," I said. "Yeah. There's." The lawyer's name was David Chen, mid-40s, sharp eyes, office downtown that looked expensive but not flashy, the kind of place where serious work happened. I met with him 2 days after the firing. "Walk me through it again," he said, "from the beginning." I did. The months of pressure, the culture of unpaid overtime, the confrontation with Marcus, the contract I showed him, the termination the next morning, the HR meeting, the threats. He took notes, didn't interrupt. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. "Did you record the conversation with HR?" "No. Should I have?" "We're in a one-party consent state. Would have been helpful, but we can work with what we have." He flipped through his notepad. "You said the HR director threatened to fabricate performance concerns if you didn't sign the release." "Not in those words, but yes." "And you didn't sign." "I didn't sign." He nodded slowly. "That's good. That's very good." He set down the notepad. "Here's where we are. You have a clear paper trail. Employment contract with defined hours. No documented performance issues. Termination immediately following a dispute about overtime. That's textbook retaliation. So we have a case. We have a strong case. The question is how we want to pursue it. What are the options? We can file a complaint with the Department of Labor. That's the slow route. Investigation, mediation, maybe a settlement in 6 months to a year. Or we can file directly in civil court. That's faster, but more expensive upfront. Higher potential payout, higher risk. What do you recommend?" He leaned forward. "I recommend we do both. File with the DOL to establish a formal record. Simultaneously prepare a civil complaint. Send a demand letter first, give them a chance to settle. If they don't, we go to court. And if they try to bury me, character assassination? Fake performance reviews? Then they're committing fraud. And they're doing it after you've already established a legal record of their retaliation. Every move they make from this point forward will be scrutinized. If they're smart, they'll settle. If they're stupid, they'll give us more ammunition. What about the reference letter? The threat to tank my future employment? Tortious interference. If they follow through, we add it to the complaint. If they don't, we document the threat and use it as evidence of their mindset. I sat with that for a moment. The whole thing felt surreal. 2 weeks ago, I had a job and a routine and a life that made sense. Now I was sitting in a lawyer's office talking about complaints and civil court and fraud. But underneath the surreal feeling was something else. Something solid. Certainty. Let's do it, I said. All of it? All of it. The demand letter went out 3 days later. David's firm didn't mess around. The letter was 8 pages long. Detailed timeline. Cited precedents. Specific damages. A settlement figure that made my eyes water when I first saw it. They're not going to pay that, I said. Of course they're not. That's the opening position. We'll end up somewhere in the middle. But we want them to understand that we're serious. That this isn't going to be quiet. That if they don't make it right, the whole thing goes public. The company had 15 days to respond. They responded in 3. The counteroffer was insulting. Basically the original severance with an extra week and a confidentiality clause that would have gagged me for life. David laughed when he read it. They're not taking us seriously yet. What do? We file the Dole complaint. Today. And we let them know we're doing it. The complaint was detailed. Everything I'd told David, plus documentation. Emails. Calendar entries. The contract. The termination notice. Screenshots of text messages where coworkers discuss the real working hours. Everything. It went in on a Thursday afternoon. Friday morning, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Hello? Is this, a pause, paper shuffling the individual who filed a complaint against Mercer Logistics Partners? Who is this? My name is Sandra Wells. I'm with the regional office of the Department of Labor. I'm calling to confirm receipt of your complaint and to schedule an initial interview. It was happening. It was actually happening. Yes, I said. That's me. What do you need? The interview happened the following Tuesday. Sandra Wells was efficient, professional, thorough. She asked questions I hadn't even thought of. Questions about company policies. Questions about other employees. Questions about whether this had happened to anyone else. That last one stuck with me. I don't know, I said honestly. I never asked. Everyone just accepted it. The culture. The hours. Nobody pushed back. But you did. I did. She made a note. Didn't share what she was thinking. We'll be in touch, she said. This may take some time. I want you to understand that. Investigations are thorough, but they're not fast. I understand. Do you have legal representation? I do. Good. Keep them informed. And if the company contacts you directly, they shouldn't be contacting me at all, right? She allowed herself a small smile. That's correct. If they do, document it. Let us know. 2 weeks later, the company contacted me. Not directly. They weren't that stupid. They went through David. A settlement offer. A real one this time. The number was significant. Not the opening figure, but close. Close enough to make a difference. Close enough to be taken seriously. But there were conditions. Confidentiality. Non-disparagement. A complete release of all claims. And a statement, to be released internally, that my departure was mutual and amicable. David laid it out for me in his office. It's a good offer, he said, financially, but you need to understand what you're giving up. The truth. In a sense. You can never talk about what happened. Not publicly. Not to other employees. Not to the press. And they get to control the narrative. They get to say it was your choice. That there was no wrongdoing. So they get away with it. They pay, significantly. But yes, in terms of reputation, in terms of accountability, they walk away clean. I thought about Marcus, standing in my doorway, that smile when he saw the notice on my door, the victory in his eyes. I thought about the other employees, still there, still working until 7, still missing their kids' bedtimes, still believing that's what commitment looked like. I thought about my daughter's drawing. 3 people. No dad. What happens if I don't take it? We go to court. It takes longer. It costs more. The outcome is less certain. But it goes on the record. The truth comes out. They don't get to pretend it didn't happen. And if we win? You get compensated. They get found liable. It sets a precedent. Other employees in similar situations have something to point to. And if we lose? You get nothing. You've spent months in litigation. You might have trouble finding new work while the case is pending. Companies don't like hiring people who are suing their former employers. I sat with that, the weight of it. What would you do? I asked. He shook his head. I can't answer that. It's your decision. I'm asking your opinion, not your recommendation. He was quiet for a long moment. If it were me, he finally said, I'd want them to answer for it. I'd want it on the record. I'd want other people to know that this isn't okay. That you can push back. That there are consequences. He paused. But I don't have kids. I don't have a mortgage. I'm not the one who has to live with the risk. I nodded. I need to talk to my wife, I said. Take your time. They gave us 10 days to respond. That night, after the kids were in bed, I told her everything. The offer, the conditions, the choice. She listened, asked questions, thought about it. What do you want to do? She asked. I don't know. Yes, you do. I looked at her. She was right. She always knew when I was dodging. I want to burn them down, I said. I want Marcus to answer for what he did. I want it on record that they can't just fire someone for leaving on time. I want other people to know. Then do it. It's risky. If we lose, we'll figure it out. We always figure it out. She moved closer. You started this because you wanted to be here. With us. With the kids. You wanted to draw that line. Don't erase it now because they're offering you money to stay quiet. It's a lot of money. I know. And we could use it. But we'll survive without it. We won't survive if you spend the rest of your life wondering what would have happened if you'd fought. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. She already knew my answer. The next morning, I called David. We're going to court. The civil complaint was filed on a Monday. Wrongful termination. Retaliation. Violation of employment contract. Hostile work environment. Tortious interference with future employment. David's team had been thorough. Every claim was documented. Every allegation was supported. The complaint named Marcus specifically. Named Janet from HR. Named the company. Named the partners who had signed off on the restructuring. Within 24 hours, it was picked up by a local business journal. Small story. Back section. But it was out there. Within a week, 3 other former employees had contacted David's firm. Same story. Different names. Same culture. Same pressure. Same retaliation when they pushed back. David added them to the case. Class action potential. Suddenly it wasn't just about me. It was about a pattern. The company's lawyers responded fast. Motion to dismiss. Motion to seal. Motion to compel arbitration based on a clause buried in the employee handbook. David fought every one. The arbitration motion almost worked. The judge spent 2 days reviewing the handbook, the employment contract, the circumstances of my signing. In the end, he ruled that the arbitration clause was unenforceable. Too vague. Improperly disclosed. Signed under conditions that didn't constitute informed consent. The case stayed in civil court. Discovery was brutal. Not for me, for them. Every email Marcus had ever sent about working hours. Every internal memo about cultural expectations. Every performance review that mentioned visibility or commitment as criteria. Every HR record of employees who had been restructured after disputes about overtime. The picture that emerged was damning. This wasn't one bad manager. This was systematic, deliberate. A company-wide policy of extracting unpaid labor and punishing anyone who objected, documented in their own words, in their own files, in their own handwriting. David called me after the first round of document production. They're going to settle, he said. They have to. This goes to trial. They're destroyed. When? Soon. Their lawyers aren't stupid. They're looking at what's coming and they know they can't survive it. The settlement offer came 2 weeks later. Not a confidential offer this time. A structured agreement. Payment to me. Payments to the other plaintiffs. A commitment to revise company policies. Mandatory overtime compensation. Limitations on working hours. Third-party auditing of HR practices. And no confidentiality clause. The truth stayed on the record. David reviewed the terms with me. It's not everything we asked for, he said. But it's close. And the policy changes are significant. This affects every employee at that company. Current and future. What about Marcus? He's named in the agreement. Required to complete management training. Prohibited from making employment decisions without HR oversight for 2 years. That's it? He doesn't get fired? We can't force them to fire anyone. That's their internal decision. But his career there is effectively over. No one trusts a manager who's been named in a settlement. He'll be sidelined. Managed out. Gone within a year. It wasn't the dramatic ending I'd imagined. No public humiliation. No perp walk. No moment of visible justice. But it was something. Something real. Something that would matter. Okay, I said. Let's do it. The agreement was signed on a Thursday afternoon. All parties present. Lawyers shaking hands. Documents exchanged. I didn't go to the signing. David handled it. I didn't want to see them. Didn't want to give them the satisfaction of seeing me either. That evening, I picked my kids up from school. My daughter ran across the playground when she saw me, jumped into my arms, nearly knocked me over. "Daddy, you're here." "I'm here." "Are you coming to pick us up every day now?" "Not every day, but more. A lot more." My son was behind her, cooler about it, 7 years old, too old for running and jumping, but he smiled when he saw me, really smiled, the kind of smile I hadn't seen in months. "Hey, Dad." "Hey, buddy." We walked to the car together. My daughter held my hand the whole way, told me about her day, her teacher, her friend who had a hamster, the picture she drew that was hanging in the hallway. "Is it a family picture?" I asked. "Yeah, it has all of us. You and Mom and me and Charlie." "All 4 of us?" "Of course, Dad. That's what a family is." I didn't say anything, just squeezed her hand a little tighter. 3 months later, I started a new job. Different company, different culture, clear boundaries, reasonable hours, work that mattered without demanding everything. The settlement money helped bridge the gap. It also paid off part of the mortgage, set up college funds for both kids, gave us breathing room we hadn't had in years. But that wasn't the part that mattered. The part that mattered was the changes at Mercer, the new policies, the oversight, the audits, the slow, grinding shift towards something that looked almost like fairness. I heard about it from former coworkers, people who reached out after the settlement went public, people who said thank you, people who said they wished they'd had the courage to push back themselves. One of them told me about Marcus. He was still there, technically, but his role had been reduced, his authority had been stripped. He spent his days in a corner office doing compliance reviews. No direct reports, no client contact, no power. A different kind of firing, slower, quieter, but just as final. I didn't feel satisfaction when I heard that. Didn't feel vindication. Just felt tired. Tired and ready to move on. My wife asked me once if it was worth it, all of it. The stress, the uncertainty, the months of waiting and fighting and not knowing how it would end. I thought about the question for a long time. "I don't know if it was worth it," I finally said. "I know it was right. I know I couldn't have looked my kids in the eye if I'd just taken the money and stayed quiet. I know I'd have spent the rest of my life wondering what would have happened if I'd stood up. And now? Now I know. Now it's done. Now I can teach them that you don't have to accept things just because everyone else does, that your time belongs to you, that being present matters more than being visible." She nodded, didn't say anything else, didn't need to. There's a drawing on our refrigerator now. 4 people in front of a house, big sun in the corner, green grass at the bottom. Mom, Dad, 2 kids. Everyone where they're supposed to be. My daughter made it the day after the settlement was signed. She didn't know what the settlement was, didn't know what any of it meant. She just knew I was home for dinner, that I was there when she woke up, that I'd started picking her up from school. She drew what she saw. I look at that picture every morning, before I leave for work, before I start my day, before the emails and the meetings and the endless small demands that try to convince me my time doesn't belong to me. It belongs to them. It always did. I just forgot for a while. I won't forget again.